Hi, this is Francesca Vigliani from Cloud Academy. I'd like to welcome you all to today's first live session, Cloud Academy Deep Dive. Today, we'll explore how you can deploy training plans for teams. As you all know, in the past few years, cloud computing has seen an incredible rise, and the trend seems to be unstoppable. The benefits of cloud computing seem so promising that the demand for professionals who are skilled in DevOps, AWS, and anything cloud related is going through the roof, causing the infamous skills gap we often read about. And if you're listening right now, I know you know exactly what I'm talking about, as the skills gap is a recurring issue that always comes up in our own organizations. So it's for this reason today that I'm excited to be here with Mark Smith. Mark is a Cloud Academy's solutions engineer, an expert on cloud training, and an expert on leveraging the Cloud Academy platform releases to make cloud transformation successful, including training plans, of course. So welcome, Mark.
Hey, thanks, Francesca, and welcome to everyone that's on with us today. We're very happy you could join.
Thank you, Mark. Just a quick memo for our audience. This session will be recorded and we'll be taking questions towards the end, so please feel free to log them. But before we get started, let's discuss why we're here. Turns out the cloud skills gap is a real business problem. Isn't that right, Mark?
It absolutely is, Francesca, and it's something I've seen over the last several years in working with organizations. Just throw out the ancillary stats here for a little bit to kind of lay the foundation for everyone. We want to make sure that we're telling you exactly the purpose of why we're here. So over 75% of IT groups say that their organizations are actively losing revenue due to skills gaps. And we know that's a major problem. It results in low staff productivity, affects speed to market, cybersecurity holes. Additionally, another over 80% of organizations with over 1,000 plus employees are reporting that having the right cloud skills are important and critical to their digital transformation. And essentially, when you think about it, you can't hire your way out of the cloud skills gap. So that's why training is a must from within. And another stat here, close to 70% of the enterprise respondents plan to be running a multi-cloud environment by 2019. We're actively seeing it with our customers, and we are certainly knowing that that's something that is coming up and more frequent in the industry as we move along. So I'm sure everyone really wants to get into the reason why we're here, so enough with the stats, and let's really get to the problem and the solution that we identified at Cloud Academy, which are training plans, and we'll move right into that.
Right, let's get practical. Here are some of the most recurring comments that senior managers who are in charge of cloud have reported from their teams. You know, people usually start with really good intentions, but ultimately life gets in the way. There are deadlines, assignments, and so on. So what happens is that with time, training loses its importance. It simply becomes part of the background. Again, it's not that people don't want to train, they do, but we understand that often things just get in the way, especially when there is no accountability system in place. When people have a structured plan for which they're accountable for, they're definitely more motivated to follow it and stay on track. So the truth is that most teams have good intentions. Isn't that right, Mark?
It is right. People often have the best intentions, and what we've seen is just simply making training available doesn't necessarily guarantee results. Just access to an entirety of a content library without that true direction just lends itself to creating training as being more ad hoc and reactionary because there's no specified training objectives that are actually out there for these employees and students that they're able to see. So again, individuals are starting out with really good intentions, but in the grind and the daily work that goes on, training can somewhat become an afterthought. So there's a need for specific assignments and objectives, and individuals tend to just put less emphasis on their development as some of these days, long work days and projects kick in. And then meanwhile, on the manager side, so we've listened to the managers that we work with. They previously made training available, and oftentimes it didn't get done. We heard from senior managers that could tell that this effort was being made, but ultimately they just weren't able to measure that. And then we heard from C-suite executives, CIOs, CTOs, and they knew that they were basically on the clock to drive this type of transformation, and they just weren't really confident that the results, the resources that were being aligned with the path that they were charting. And I really think that's part of the main reason why we're here today. Isn't that right, Francesca?
Absolutely, Mark. Why is it so crucial to fill the skills gap? Because by the end of 2018, more than 60% of enterprises will have at least half of their infrastructure on cloud-based platforms. On top of this, nearly three-quarters of IT decision makers believe their organizations have lost revenue due to a lack of cloud expertise. We really don't want that to happen, do we, Mark?
No, we don't. And I do want to provide a little color to this, and preface this by saying that I came from a traditional instructor-led training background. And what I actively told customers when we were working with them, I actually told them that, having a person in, we called it back then butts and seats, having someone in the class to actually take the training was really the only way that you could drive that accountability, because at least you knew they were in there. I mean, ultimately didn't know how much they would retain, what they would do with them when they came out. But I didn't see the possibility of having that type of accountability in the world of digital and web-based training. And ultimately, I spoke with someone here at Cloud Academy, and it's because of this very product that we're talking about today. I knew that this was the piece that was missing, and I knew that this is, I felt that the digital content was more relevant to the customers, even when I was in ILT, but it was the accountability factor that I was preaching. And this product was one that just made me realize this is absolutely a game changer and something that all of our customers will benefit from.
What can I say, Mark? I think you made a great decision. I know how it can be frustrating for the individuals, but how about from the manager's perspective? What does it look like, Mark?
Yeah, so the frustration on the manager's behalf is that they just really have no true way to assess the cloud skill competency at the team or at the individual level. Just monitoring consumption of training, so seeing and being able to log in and see that an employee's been on a platform for however many hours of that they've consumed training is not going to guarantee the retention and the application of it. And I don't think anyone on this call or really any of our customers want someone going in just basing they're working in a live environment just based on consumption of content. And really the executive level, so to kind of one step up from a manager, is they just can't get simple updates on these training objectives. Managers aren't able to relay back to executives and speak confidently on how the training is going, just because they're looking only at consumption. And then another thing that we know are certifications are very important. Industry certifications are something that people want to see, and they're oftentimes being driven in a deadline to maintain partnerships or whatever that may be, and they're not able to do that. So kind of to lead us up to the solution here, after receiving all this feedback from our customers, Cloud Academy came up with a very unique solution called training plans, and that's essentially what we want to talk to you about today.
Great. So before we get into details, what are training plans exactly and how do they help our customers?
So there's some points here on the slide, and I just want to provide an overall summation of what training plans are for you all. So think of training plans are a collection of multiple learning paths, and they're designed by team roles, and they're actually for a specific purpose. To understand training plans and learning, you have to understand what learning paths are as well. So learning paths and training plans are not interchangeable. Training plans do consist of learning paths. Those paths are actually comprised of courses, hands-on labs, as well as quizzes and exams. So you're learning in and through the courses, you're actually going and doing the work in and through the lab, so you're applying what you learned in the course in a live environment. And then ultimately you're validating that through some quizzes and ultimately an exam, which kind of simulates an exam, a live exam type environment. And then ultimately these training plans are what we call, you put those in a training plan cycle. And it's really created, a training plan cycle is kind of taking two additional inputs. So you assign a due date to it, to the training plan, and then you put that out to one or more teams. And really, as a best practice, it should be something that you strive to have a cycle throughout the year, training on what's next, not just being reactive to what's coming up currently. So we're not a big fan of reactionary training, right? Sometimes it has to happen for whatever the reasons may be, but ultimately planning not for current state, but for what your future state is. So we found best practices to have maybe 2 cycles per year. If it sounds like that's something that might be challenging or daunting, we want to talk to you today and through these demos to explain to you why it's not and why we can actually help you with that pretty easily.
Cool, that was really spot on, Mark. So some of the people attending today's live session know Cloud Academy as the platform that trains their teams at their own pace without any exam or due date, basically as projects come up, and importantly, according to their tech and business needs. But let's learn more about training plans because, after all, results are more important than even the best intentions. Over to you, Mark.
All right, great. I'm going to pop in now to one of our staging environments here. I want to talk a little bit and actually walk you through the process of creating a training plan. Prior to this point, I do want to make, I want to get everyone caught up to where you would be at this point. So prior to actually going and assigning a training plan, there would have been a call set up between whoever in your organization was responsible for kind of setting those objectives. Oftentimes there's maybe 1 or 2 or 3 people, and myself and one of our content experts. And we want to walk through the process of actually going through what your learning objectives are, take a couple of drafts of training plans, get those over to you, have you review, walk through what they all consist of. Once you sign off on those, then we would go make those available to your organization, and this would be the point where you would go and assign them to teams.
So, Mark, I know you are the solutions engineer, but can you elaborate on the content experts, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So the content team has, they all have extensive experience in the areas that they cover. We have several different content members that have come from AWS, several years experience in Azure and Google. So we call those the big 3 platforms. Then ultimately the technology is unlocked by cloud. So your artificial intelligence, machine learning, and then the methodologies that are needed to support them from an infrastructure standpoint. So you have your DevOps, and then ultimately you want to make sure your environment's secure as well. So again, intimate knowledge on all these areas, and they can listen to some of the requests that you have along with myself and really drive that into the content and help formulate these training plans for you.
That's fantastic, Mark. Thank you so much. I think we can get started with the demo. What do you think?
Absolutely. So I first want to show you what a member, the dashboard looks like from a member perspective, just provide a little bit of context on that. So you can see a couple of areas where you could continue studying, similar to a Netflix bill. So you've got the stripes up here, some things on top picks, because you started, some recommendations, and then some other content down here. There is something for most popular, and because it's a stage environment, it's not there, it's not pulling in the new content. But when we make new content available over the course of whatever, a month or what it might be, that will pop down at the bottom as well. A couple of different things interactive here, some tips that tell you how to download the mobile app. We'll talk more about that later. And then you can come and look at some certification paths as well. For today's demo, what we're going to do is actually create, we've created a training plan for developers. Now we're going to create the team and actually go through and assign that. So from this menu up on the right-hand corner, you'll see that you have training plans, teams, leaderboard, all these different things. So the first thing that we need to do is actually assign a team, or create a team for the developers, I should say. So we're going to click on that. Be mindful, this is a staging environment, so some things are a little slow sometimes. So I'm hoping that we've got the perfect storm and things will work out great here, and we won't have any slow areas. So we'll call this team the developers. Just make the description the same. You don't have to have one if you don't want, by the way. And you click confirm. So this next screen is going to show you, after your company has gone in to Cloud Academy, you can actually put in all the members of your teams of your company, and they'll be available to select and push over into whatever role you want within that team. So ultimately, you can start dragging and dropping some members over there. We'll have Jamal be the manager. You'll see this little green box up here, and then sometimes it'll do something like that, but because it's a staging environment, so we might have to pull back out and do this. But again, just be mindful in the production environment, this is not something that actually happens. So you're dragging and dropping, and once you see that notification that the actual user has been added, there's no save button. It just automatically updates that for you. Pull Michaela over here. See, she's been added, so once that goes away, you know that you can start putting another member in there. Let's go with Stuart. And one more for good measure, we'll throw in Steven. Pop back out over to the teams just to make sure everyone took there. All right, and we can see we have our developers team that's available.
That's awesome, Mark. But I'm curious about something. Can a user be assigned to more than one team?
So that's a great question. That's a question that comes up in and through the course of talking with our customers about training plans that they have. I want to make sure that we're very clear that training plans are intended to be assigned to one team at a time. So no one individual should be consuming a training plan more than one training plan at a time. And the reason is the purpose of the training plan is to help you set an objective in a deadline tied to that training plan that they have to complete in order to get to the next stage of where you want them to be. And you're monitoring that progress all the way through. Just for an example, you can have some longer training plans you want. I just worked with a customer that they had some operations people that were relatively, some were kind of at a basic level, some were a little more advanced, but they inevitably wanted all of them to have access to AWS and Azure. So they created 3 training plans. On one, they had the AWS route. On the other, they had the Azure route. And those were more foundations where they actually wanted those people to go into one or the other. They hand selected them. But then they had a couple of groups, a couple of people, I should say, that they were a more quote unquote advanced team. And they wanted to be able to choose and go between Azure and AWS as they saw fit. So they made an entire training plan that encompassed all of the AWS and Azure material that they could go and consume as they saw fit. So yeah, one training plan per team, but we can modify those and however it fits for the organization.
Thank you, Mark.
No problem. All right, so now we're actually going to go into and assign a training plan. Again, these have already been created. When we come over to the training plan dashboard, you're going to see that there's already been some that are assigned here. You can actually see when you pop in to one of these, so this is your management dashboard, you get an overall look in the previous screen, and here's where you can actually go in. You see your overall information here on the team level, and then you can look at the individual level down here. This team is actually doing really well. They're all tracking very well ahead, but just for if someone was tracking behind, there's going to be a feature enabled in this quarter where if you saw someone was tracking behind right now, you would just have to send them an email if you wanted them to do something. But ultimately, if they were tracking behind, there'll be a little nudge button eventually where you can click that, and it would automatically generate an email telling them you wanted them to devote some more time to that training plan. And that's the same for all of those if you go into them.
Cool. So that was pretty easy. How many training plans can you have?
Well, the short answer to that is you can have as many as you want. We're working with a larger biotech company now, and they have upwards of 40 different training plans assigned to different job roles. So we have, he lets me know when he needs a new training plan. We work it out, and it's enabled. It's done in probably 20, 30 minutes, but it's based on their job roles and kind of unique to however an organization wants. So depending on what you're looking at from your stack and your environment, we can create as many training plans as you want.
Awesome. So I find that really impressive. And let me ask you something else. Can you customize content?
And that's another good point. So we're going to jump ahead just a second here because we're going to have another one of these deep dives on another just awesome product that led me over to Cloud Academy, which is Content Engine. So Content Engine is excellent, and I mentioned before, so industry certifications and things, they're all great. You may need those for whatever reason, whether it's to maintain a partnership with AWS or whoever it may. I know that, or just to verify someone's level of of knowledge within a certain area. But ultimately, a lot of our customers are saying that they like the option to, you take the AWS training and that's their training. Not necessarily everything in there is going to be applicable to their environment. Our CEO was just talking about Content Engine today. We had an internal call talking about how security policies and things like that are different in every environment. Content Engine is going to be that way to help you be able to, you have this, AWS training. Well, then you have the ability to maybe insert in some PowerPoint slides or a PDF on how it's actually done at your company. Ultimately, you can create some labs and customize labs and things like that. If you have different tagging policies, things like that, that will be made available. But ultimately, the point of Content Engine is to help you get that curriculum so you can choose from all the content library learning paths and customize it as you want, but to get that curriculum to mirror your environment as much as possible to make it as productive as possible for all those that are on the platform.
That's really great, Mark. So tell me more.
All right. So prior to assigning the developer training plan, I just want to show you that we go in here. Well, let me do this first. We go into add a training plan cycle. I want to show you that, again, I mentioned that you can have as many training plans as you want. So we have created roughly between 12 and 14 base level training plans that can be used at any organization, you know, a template, so to speak, that you could start with. There's a couple of those in here, and I just want to kind of go over and show you what this looks like for just one or two of them before we go to the developer part. So for the solutions architect, clearly in this role, it's a little bit more advanced in that they're going for the professional certification in AWS. So that's just one milestone, right? So they don't necessarily want them to stop there. So in the purpose of this learning path, it was to complete all of that study, right? To actually go and take the exam within the Cloud Academy platform to figure out whether or not you're ready to go and test for that, and ultimately you can go and do that. So that's a milestone within that training plan outside of that one learning path, but it doesn't really stop there. So for this particular example, they wanted more in AWS security services, governance and compliance, and cloud management tools. And that is exactly what a training plan cycle is. And you can see the content duration and the average time to working days over on the side. Same thing for some of these you'll see, and they may not be as as lengthy, but like this one just has 2 learning paths that make it. So that concept is present in all the training plans that we create. So again, we're going to go to the developer one here. You'll see that we start with, again, that initial milestone, developer associate certification prep for AWS. But again, that's just one milestone that we don't want to stop there. So we'll continue on with serverless computing and then also some serverless Python web development. So again, they may test for the developer certification prior to completing this. It's all in that training plan cycle and how they want to manage it. So this is the one we're going to assign. We come over here to assign to teams. Here's where all the teams that you've created, so all the 4 that you saw on the previous screen, this is where the teams are at. You just need to make sure that you select the correct one, which will be developers here. Hit continue. So we don't necessarily assume that managers have all the knowledge in the world and don't need the training. So this is an option for all the members are going to be assigned the training plan regardless of that team. This is an option where if the administrator is assigning out this training plan and they want to include the manager as part of that. So we give you an option to do that. If you don't want it, you just simply don't click it and then you confirm. So for purposes of the demo, we're just not going to select that. We're just going to go to confirm and select due date. So
what if after the assignment of the training plans, the manager realized they weren't as smart as they thought? What about that, Mark?
That's a good question too, and I'll show you that in just a second after we pop out and assign this one and the review. I'll go back to the team and show you how to fix that pretty easily. So on average, we've seen that training plans teams are able to devote 3 hours per week. Here you can see the total content duration, what that due date would look like if it was 3 hours per week, and the number of working days. If you have less time to devote to training and you want to pull this back, you'll see the due date increase, working days increase ultimately, and you can set it as low as you want. If you scale over to the right, you'll see the opposite. The due date will decrease, working days will decrease. Maybe you have a tighter deadline that you're working in and you absolutely want to devote more time to training. That's perfectly fine. For purposes of this demo, we'll just leave it at 3 hours and you click on the review. So this is your opportunity to look at, again, just kind of a review of actually everything you signed, your due date, working days, the weekly commitment. Shows that it's assigned to the teams of developers. You don't see the manager on there because you didn't select that. Note here, every person on that selected team is going to get a notification of that training plan with the due date and that it's been assigned to them. It's going to be shown to be assigned by whoever did the assignment, obviously. Once you click confirm and assign, that goes out immediately. Ultimately, the weekly weekly progress reports, that goes out to the managers on Mondays so they can track the status of the team. It'd be in an email. It'll have an overall look, but then you can click on the hyperlink to go into that deep dive into the individuals to see where they're at. For individuals, so members on the team, that email goes out on Wednesday. Reason for that is on a Monday, if someone's tracking behind and you hit them up and tell them you need to do some more work on this, they got a little bit of time before they get their report on Wednesday to show some of the progress that they've made. And I think that's pretty cool to give them a little bit of chance to do that as well. So everything looks good, and you click on confirm and assign. And this is going to take us back to the training plans dashboard, and there we are. We can see this one is live. It's in there with all the rest. And to Francesca's question, so let's say the administrator, like she said, the administrator realized that the manager needed it as well. Maybe sold himself, sold himself up a little bit. No problem with that. But ultimately decided that they need the training plan. Here's Jamal, the manager. You can see it's not active for him right now. All you have to do is come over here, click assign. It will just ask you to kind of verify that and click assign again. As soon as you do that, the email goes out to Jamal, and he is back in the loop here and a member of the entire training plan with everyone else. Ultimately, Jamal's the manager, so he'll be the one that sees all of this data. Individuals will see where they're tracking. All right, now we're going to take a look at. Yeah, no problem, Francesca. We're going to take a look at some of the adjustments that you can make to a training plan. So modifications. We talked about the metrics. You saw before how it looks when people have actually taken exams, gone through the training. So you'll see that here on this dashboard. Ultimately, if you look at it and you say, we call it a bad break, had a few urgent projects, people weren't able to devote as much time as they wanted to training, and you want to extend that due date, what you do is come right up here under the due date, click that, and just pick the date that you want to move it to in the future. So I'll just select the date here. And once you see the current, new, and verify it, you confirm extension. And that email will generate to every member of the team, including the manager, telling them that the due date has been extended. So they'll be notified of that. If for some reason you come into this training plan and you no longer need it, you want to delete it, up here, you can click that. There's a little recycle bin in the top right corner. Notice it's red, just saying, you're sure? And it gives you an option to clarify whether or not you actually want to do that. So I'll hit cancel there. And just in general, modifications to training plans, we've had this happen very frequently where, environments change, or maybe you realize something you didn't account for when you were initially preparing the training plan. You'll work with me a lot on this. You'll have your strategic account managers you work with. There'll be another content expert involved. There's numerous people you can contact for your purposes, and people on the phone. If you're working with this, I would say you'll be more involved with me on this part of it, and you can certainly shoot me an email, give me a call, let me know what some of the changes you're considering. I go in, make those in the back end, and enable those for you, and they show up immediately in the training plan. So once people log in, they'll be notified that there was a new step added or something like that, so that they can go and complete that if needed. I want everyone to know that eventually training plans will be able to be created by the admins at your organization on Cloud Academy. Right now, since we've been in beta with it for a while and we just launched it a couple of weeks ago, it's more of an intimate partnership. Much like your relationship with Cloud Academy, we want it to be a true partnership. We just want to make sure that everyone understands the benefits of training plans, are using them to the fullest. So we're working more intimately with you to do that. And ultimately, after there's been a kind of that grace period, so to speak, we'll roll that over where admins can actually do that as well.
That's really great, Mark. Thank you for being so thorough. Let's talk about tracking now. How is completion of a course that was completed outside of a training plan tracked?
Yeah, good point. So there is, these training plans are, you have access to the entirety of the content library. So your users that you assign training plans to, they're not going to just see the training plan. They're actually going to have access to the entirety of the content library. So if they happen to go into, if work dictates that they need to go and take a course, and that course, or go through a learning path or a course, whatever it may be, and that course is part of the learning path and that training plan, it will automatically be tracked and updated in the training plan. So it's intuitive and automatically be registered as completed in the new plan. Additionally, if there's course content that's updated, which we do, we evaluate content recurring basis, at least every 3 months. If in the course of doing that training plan or learning path and they've completed it, whatever it may be, if that content was updated, they'll be notified when they go into it that whatever course has been updated, and they'll be asked to go and complete that again. So it kind of reset it so they could go back and do that.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. All right, and real quickly, now we're just going to go back and look at modifying your teams if you needed to. I think this is important. Um, you know, we sincerely hope and we want for all of our customers that you grow leaps and bounds. We anticipate that. We expect that for the effort that you're putting in training, and that you're working with the best of the best. So we constantly expect and hope that you're going to be adding new members to your team as you move forward, and we want to help you with that. So ultimately, let's say you hired someone new in the developer team and you wanted to add them to that training plan. You go into it. We'll just say Aiden is the new team member here. Is Aiden going to register for me? Give me 1 second here. We'll add Brennan too. One of them will stick, I'm sure. So you add them over there. Let's see if yeah, we might have to do that one more time, folks. Sorry for that. Again, staging environment. It does not happen in production. So there you go. User added. So now we see Aiden is added to the team. Now we want to go and make sure that Aiden has access to the training plan. Go back to our training plans. Similar to what we were doing when we saw that the manager was not there, we see not assigned. I added 2 people, so 2 people are showing as not assigned. So we added Aiden and Brennan. We want to make sure we can tell that they're not on the training plan yet. We go choose both of them, click assign. Same thing with Brennan here, click assign. And now they're going to be added to the training plan, and they're ultimately in there to go and consume it. An email would go out to them immediately after that to tell them that it's been assigned.
Okay, cool. Can you also clarify another aspect? In particular, I was interested in the role of the team manager and reporting features. Can you tell me more about that, please?
Sure. So as a best practice, to make sure that training plans are getting the most success and the most ROI, you want to make sure that your team managers are those people that are ultimately in charge of driving the success of that team and the objectives specifically laid out in the training plan as well. Note that you can have multiple team managers. We know that's the case. So you could have a larger team, with multiple managers, and that's fine. Just make sure that you're selecting the ones that are going to be responsible for driving that objective through. Ultimately, they're going to be the ones holding the students or members accountable for completing the training, and we want to make sure that person matches up with what we expect in that role for a training plan. That's how you're going to get the most success of it. They'll have access to all those reporting features that we talked about, where you can see where everyone is tracking the management dashboards, and they can go and do all the follow-up they need to make sure that everyone is where they need to be. So ultimately, Francesca, I think I covered everything that I wanted to in the demo. I guess we could move to Q&A now.
Definitely. Let's take some questions. I saw a couple of questions coming in. So first question, how many people usually go on a training plan?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that you kind of think of it, the best way I could tell you, think of it from, framing it out around a wall-to-wall deployment. So all of your technical teams by role and what they need. So we have customers, like I mentioned before, the larger biotech company with 45 different training plans, 10 people in one, 15 in another, but you could really have a training plan with, over 100 users if you needed to, if that's what fits your environment. So there's no limit on that. You just want to we want to work with you to understand the objectives of your group, what you're trying to accomplish, and then we can, kind of help you, create that and make it the most effective.
Awesome. So let me browse through the questions, see what else we can answer. This one, what does Cloud Academy mean when you reference hands-on labs?
That's a good question as well. We get this one quite a bit, and I know that when hands-on labs can be taken numerous ways, and I want to make sure that I'm very clear in the distinction that Cloud Academy with hands-on labs. So sometimes someone could say hands-on labs, but it's an actual lab simulation. Maybe it's a possible, a file that you can download and go do it on your own console, AWS or Azure, whatever it may be. With Cloud Academy, I want to make sure that I'm absolutely clear that when you're logging into a learning path and going through a hands-on lab, you are legitimately signing into our AWS console, our Azure console, using our account to go in and do those labs. So you're walking through the steps, you're given ample amount of time to complete that lab, more than probably it takes an average user to do, and you can literally do it as many times as you want. So if you're in a learning path and you have a lab that you just want to go back and get some more practice on, you could do it 100 times if you want to. And that's one of the real added benefits of the hands-on labs and the views of Cloud Academy.
Great. I have another question for you, Mark. I am sure you heard this one before, probably like 1,000 times. How is Cloud Academy different from other online learning platforms?
Yeah, I've definitely heard that as well. So we obviously know. I mean, there's no shortage of online learning, web-based learning platforms, whatever you may want to call it. And really the position that Cloud Academy takes, the reason why I chose to come here, and the reason why I'm excited about getting up every morning and going to work and working on these is not just the extensive content library and the excellent content team we have, but it's the products that we have. It's the innovation of our product team that are just grinding each and every day. These engineers and developers that are putting in the work to create things like training plans and content engine and skill assessments and the robust management dashboard and hands-on labs that you can customize. I mean, the opportunities and the things that they're putting out there are just really next level. And things like content engine and training plans, those are unique to Cloud Academy. Those are not things that you can go get somewhere else. There may be variations of some of these things we talk about, but ultimately these are game-changing type products that I believe in, that our team believes in, and ultimately our customers are showing are going to be a huge success in their environments.
So I think it's pretty clear from your answer who they should get in touch with for their cloud training. Isn't that right, Mark?
I will be here. I'm always ready.
All right, we have time just for a couple more questions. What is the training plan user experience? I think we kind of already answered that, but let's see if we can add something else to it.
Yeah, I mean, we did talk a lot about the training plans from the manager perspective, right? I mean, and to be honest, training plans were built really for that purpose, right? But with an individual in mind as well, because we talked about in the beginning, individuals, having access to this library without any direction on how to go about training. So what we've done is, from an end user perspective, they go in and they can actually do this training, pick it up wherever they left off exactly. We have a mobile app, so they can download the mobile app. A lot of people travel that we work with. I just talking to a customer today that they download the content, consume it offline. As soon as they're back online, it updates their content and training plan and on their dashboard. So the end user experience is absolutely phenomenal, and it creates that ability for them to say, man, I know I have some things I need to do. I need to devote some time for it. So it puts accountability on them. I know for me and my perspective, that was one of the reasons why I always talked about instructor-led training, because I knew I had to go to that, right? So I knew the accountability factor I didn't see, but now I see it with this product. And I think the end users are gonna, that we've heard from the managers, are gonna love this and continue to see it as a value for them as well.
Okay, cool. One last question. They're asking how to assign a company's own course in the learning path.
So that's a great question. So that would be done through Content Engine, and we can talk about that for whoever that is, or whoever has that question. I'd love to connect with you. I know we'll have some contact information, in the previous screens. You can feel free to reach out to me or reach out to one of us here. We can actually work with you through Content Engine to get that curriculum uploaded, and then we would create a custom learning path for you that could be assigned into a training plan. So that's absolutely a possibility through Content Engine.
Awesome. I think we don't have any more time to take any more questions. So thank you, Mark, for being with us today. And thank you to all attendees for joining us. I hope you found this session as valuable as I did. We will notify you once the recording is available. Meanwhile, if you posted a question that wasn't answered, or if you'd like to ask something else to our guest, you can reach him via Twitter. Thank you so much for being with us, and goodbye.